Welcome to another episode of Jeny's Tales. My name is Andrea Florescu. I'm the marketing manager for Celtic Butterfly, and today I'm going to interview Jeny for her own podcast. We thought we were going to do something different because Jeny has a lot of things going on.
Yeah,
and we never interviewed her. She interviews a lot of authors for her podcast, but I thought, let's flip the script and do an interview with Jeny. So for those that don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself and you tell a little bit about your books?
Okay, so I'm Jeny Heckman, and I am the author of the paranormal romance series Heaven and Earth. And my first book, The Sea Archer, was written and published in 2018. And Warrior's Progeny came out last year, 2020, in July. And that's book 2. And then book 3 hopefully will be coming out at the end of the year. We'll see. I'm hoping it will. And then there's a little novella that I've written also from that series called Dee's Cornucopia, and that will be coming out hopefully this summer. And then I have a couple other books that I wrote that are not part of the series. They're off genre. One is a women's fiction book called Releasing the Catch, and the other one is a short story that was written in part of a anthology to benefit the Australian wildfire victims.
That's amazing. Well, today I think we should talk a little more about your fantasy books, because you have some things coming up with those books. So why don't you tell people what kind of fantasy these books are? So
when I started writing this, when I decided I wanted to write a series, I wanted to write something that was not the typical vampires, werewolves, witches, the things that just to me felt like they've been done a lot. So
there's a lot of those.
There is a lot of those. I mean, there's a lot of good ones that are like that, but I just wanted to do something that was a little bit different. And so I was at a writing conference actually, and I was in my hotel room and I was trying to come up with a series. I was trying to figure out what I could do. And so I was brainstorming and I had a whole bunch of them on there. And one of them was about the Greek gods. And the more I looked at it, the more I was like, I really enjoyed that when I was in high school and middle school. And I always liked the characters. I always thought they were really interesting. And I thought, well, why not? There's a lot of them. I can make a series off of this. And so it started there. And then it was like trying to figure out, an outline of, okay, well, what does this series look like? What's happening? I liked the idea of the gods having to rely on mortals to save them because they're so kind of high and mighty and everything. So that's kind of how this all originated. I wanted the gods to be in trouble. I wanted their ancestors that are mere mortals to be the ones that had to save them. And then I was thinking, well, how would that look and what would that look like? And I started thinking, they can't believe in them. They can't, it has to be like you and me being told that we're descendants of Greek gods, and where we're just like, what the hell are you talking about? So that's how I wanted it to kind of start. I thought that was a good twist, and I thought it was something that could create some drama and all of that. How do you explain to somebody that you're a descendant of a Greek god?
Yeah, what's my superpower?
What's my superpower? I want a superpower.
If I could teleport, that's really a cool one.
Exactly right. I want something that I can do that's special. And
I love the theme of Greek gods. One, because I grew up with a lot of this. I haven't read enough on this topic as an adult, but all the way through school, we watched movies. There were actually, I think, more series back like 25 years ago on this. And
Jason
you're right.
And the Argonauts. And
and you're right. They're more vampires and witches and werewolves, which are cool. I love those, but I would also love some new movies or some new material with Greek gods. I mean, Percy Jackson books and movies are great, but
But I wanted them to be adults.
Yeah,
I wanted them
those
to,
are a little more young adult.
I wanted some sex scenes, and I wanted to have, kind of like, I wanted adults to have adventures too. And that was kind of my goal with it. And I kind of liked that thought or whatever. So, yeah.
So coming up very soon, Jeny has an audiobook
Yes.
for one of the books in our series.
Yes.
Now,
so excited.
Why did you decide to turn it into an audiobook, and why did you start with book number 2 instead of book number 1?
I should have started with book number 1. I should have. But the thing is I didn't know the process was going to take as long as it did. And so I kind of thought, audiobook, somebody will read it, that will be that. And then we can go on to the next one, and we'll just get all of these books out. And I started thinking about it. And as we got into the process of it, I realized it is a much bigger deal, much harder to do than I originally thought. So
it's so different than publishing a book. I mean, there are some similarities, but also a lot of things are totally brand new.
Yeah, it's a whole different world to navigate. And so the reason I started with book number 2 is because Warriors I had just written it. It had just come out, and I thought, this will be really great. We'll just go right into the audiobook, and because we're already promoting Warriors, we'll just kind of continue on with it. I naively thought that we would be just coming down off of the hype of Warriors from a book tour, a blog tour, all of those things, and we'd just be able to move right into the audio. And no, it didn't work quite that way.
But you should still listen to it.
yeah. And so then I was like, okay, I knew about, I asked people in my writing loop, my publisher's writing loop, what did you guys do? The ones that had turned theirs into audiobooks and stuff. What did you do? How did it start? And they recommended ACX, which is the Audible platform, Amazon kind of thing.
It's similar to KDP that Amazon has.
Kind of similar to the KDP, right? Yeah. And where you can sign an exclusive agreement or a non-exclusive agreement, and it all has to do with the money that somebody makes. Yeah, the royalties for the narrator, and how you split the money up from that. Because you pay per finished hour, which is something I didn't know this world at all. And you can do what's called a royalty share, where you pay a certain amount up front, and then the narrator also gets a percentage of your sales, or you can pay everything up front, and then you make all the money, and that is called you can do a non-exclusive agreement if you choose to do that, but that's a lot more money to pay out to the narrator. And it's already quite considerable. So,
if you add up all these costs, there are quite a lot of costs before you even make any profits from your books.
Yeah, you're essentially hiring an actor. So, these people are so talented, and Kat Bond is my narrator, and she's fabulous.
Which is amazing, yeah.
She's really, really.
You need to listen to the audiobook to listen to the voices she's doing.
She can do so many of them, and you can tell she's a wonderful performer, and so that's really where, when you start, you have to do an audition. So back up, you go into ACX, you submit your book. You open it up for auditions. People will submit their tapes to you, and then you get to pick, does this person sound like my book? Does this person sound like my book? And it just kind of goes from there. And then you make an offer, and then they will go and record and do a 15-minute excerpt. And then you decide whether or not you like it or don't like it. And either they re-record or you move on to the next step.
How long was this entire process from the moment you decided you're going to do it? You went to ACX, you signed up, you said, hey, I want a book. You look for your narrator. You had some other people that you were considering, and you decided on Kat. And then until you had it published.
Yeah, so Warriors Progeny, the book came out July 27th of 2020. And it was really shortly after that I got in contact or started with ACX in that process. The audiobook is just now coming out, so that kind of gives you an idea from start to finish. it's going to be, we could put it out there a little sooner than what, than our March 10th deadline or when we were going to actually launch. But it took that long. I mean, that's a long time. Now, Kat did have a couple of projects that she was doing beforehand. So had she been available and ready to go, it might have taken, a couple months off. But yeah, so it did take quite a while. But what is that? 6 months?
At least I would say.
Yeah.
So, when writing a book, obviously it's almost like giving birth to something. You're creating something from this idea, and then you just work on it and you develop it. And it turns into maybe something bigger than you thought initially. How did you veer off from your initial story plan?
Let's see.
Like, did the characters in this book go in a different direction from what you were thinking originally, or hearing the audiobook, Kat doing the impersonation for the characters on your audiobook, is that changing the trajectory of these characters throughout the series for you?
So in regard to changes in the characters, the funny thing is with the first book, I had kind of a plan and I wrote the thing out, and then it got picked up by a publisher. And
that changed your plan?
That changed the plan.
Which is a good thing, right?
Yeah, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. But, you have your vision for your story, and then they have their vision for the story and what sells. And then so you have to marry those two together. So my initial plan, things like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm reading a book and I know, somebody says they reached over and they grabbed the Kleenex. I know that that's a Kleenex. I know that it's whatever. And with my publisher, they wanted me to take out brand names and put in tissue or whatever. And it drives me crazy when I'm reading books like that, because I know everyone knows what they're talking about, but not calling it what it is kind of drives me a little crazy. So I had to kind of wrap my mind around that and write all these different things. So there is a change when stuff like that happens. And with the first book, it was pretty simple. I didn't really know what I was doing a whole lot with it. And because there were so many things that I had written that the publisher had cut out, I had to kind of reinvent the story a little bit. And I decided to roll with it. So especially with the book one, I explained the gods a lot more. I explained who the Greek gods were, what their different connections were. It was a little bit longer prologue at the beginning, but I really did have you weren't confused about everything. And they had me take a lot of that out. So now it really did change my story.
It wasn't us. It wasn't Celtic Butterfly.
No, it was not Celtic. No, it wasn't Celtic Butterfly. But it was. But it really did. It really did change that story a whole lot. And so I had to roll with it. And so with the first book, I decided that the characters were going to learn along with the reader. And so things are going to be a little bit more confusing, and they don't know what's going on, and they're going to be trying to figure it out. And the reader is hopefully going to pick up on that and then roll with it too. So by the time Warriors Progeny book 2 came around, there's a lot more information in it. I was allowed to, I introduced a historian. So now he can explain those connections and things a little bit more in the books to follow. And my publisher also allowed me a glossary at the end of that book. So it made it a little bit easier for people who were trying to figure out those connections. I also revealed something in Warriors a little sooner than I thought I was going to. And again, it's like what you were saying, you're in the middle of writing it, and then all of a sudden something changes or shifts. And I was really afraid at the end of it that I exposed too much. And then, but it opened up a whole new set of avenues for how this book how the series was going to go. And I think it's going to be a much better series as a result of that. So it was really good. And then to answer your question about Kat, when she's narrating them or narrating it, I did have a couple of moments with the characters where I had written it a certain way. And she expressed it in their voice a different way. And I thought, wow, that was really good. That was a great choice.
Was it better than what you had initially in your mind?
A lot of it had to do with Ray, back to Ray, the historian. And, you know, he was kind of, in my mind, a very uptight, very, you know, patches on the elbows.
Typically, historians are not very glamorous.
Well,
characters or people.
Not typically.
Typically,
but, yeah. And he also was in a horrible accident that disfigured him quite a bit, and so he is an introvert, and he wants to hide a lot, and so I have him as a very quiet, extremely intelligent man. Who's just looking at Dee coming into, you know, this eccentric woman coming into his office and completely upheaving his life, and him just kind of being a little haughty about it and a little, you know, condescending and stuff. And she read it a little bit differently. And I really liked the choice that she made. So yeah, it does change. In the very long-winded answer, to answer your question, yes, it does change.
So I wasn't a big fan of audiobooks. Jeny knows this, maybe because I have not came across good narrations before, and that can make it or break it.
It can.
But I started listening to the Warriors Progeny and actually enjoy it a lot. Yeah. So I'm rethinking this audiobook thing.
Good.
I mean, they're supposed to be better than the book, right?
Well, it's like watching. It's like watching a movie. If you've ever read your favorite book and then they turn it into a movie and you feel they've ruined the book. Audiobooks are a way of kind of putting the two together where you're not destroying.
Well, audiobooks is basically just reading a work.
Exactly.
An adaptation is different because they change characters.
Yes. Yeah.
They change paths for the characters, scenes, a lot of things that some people get upset about.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, you know, it's an adaptation, and I mean, they should take it as it is. But somebody listening to an audiobook, what do you think your listening could gain from the audiobook, listening to your audiobook, that maybe they would not necessarily get it from reading the book?
Well, I think they get Kat, you know, Bond, who really does a great job at changing the voices and stuff. It fleshes out the characters in a way that, yeah, maybe you might have heard their voice a little bit differently in your mind if you read them, but she really does add a human flesh and bone kind of component to it that I don't think you would necessarily have if you just read it. So, and I do agree. I think narration makes or breaks the audiobook. And, you know, I've certainly heard both. So, yeah, I think she brings that great.
So my next question would be, what do you like the best about her?
Well, her singing voice, which you only hear a very small little snippet in Warriors Progeny, but she is doing the Sea Archer next, and that is about Raven's story and Finn's story, and Raven is a singer, and so she's. I
didn't get to the part. Well, actually, that's in the Sea Archer, so yeah. I didn't get to the part. That's gonna be the next one.
Yeah. No, but she's does a really great job. So she sends you this little form and she says, you know, what did you hear? Who's your ideal casting choice if you were to cast this as a movie in terms of the voice and all of that? And for Dee, I said, I always kind of envisioned Betty White, you know, just her sassiness and all of that stuff.
Hurry up for that. She's 99.
I know, but she's so awesome. She's just so great.
She is.
And
Betty cannot die.
No, she cannot. And so she made these little adjustments, and she did a great job at making her get that sassy kind of, because Dee's got a special place in my heart, and she's quite a character. And the next book I write is all her story. You know, before this whole series began, it's her story. And she's very sassy, and she's very eccentric, and she's really fun. And she needed to have justice done to her. So it was, that's what it's Kat. Kat brings a lot of really great characters' voices come to life.
I agree. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Me and Jeny, we had a conversation with her last week.
Yeah, that was fun too.
Yeah, it was very fun. Yeah, she's very, very fun. So, because this is your first audiobook and there's so much information and a lot of contradictory information, or maybe things that are not necessarily necessary for this whole process, what would be something that you would change now doing for the whole process? Like what you would add, what you would take out, like would you change anything about the entire process of making an audiobook?
Oh, making an audiobook. Well, again, I don't know a whole lot about, or I didn't know a whole lot about making the audiobooks and this whole thing about exclusive rights versus non-exclusive rights. I think work deserves to be heard by whoever you want it to be heard by, and you do have that option, but you really are kind of pigeonholed if you don't want to pay the thousands and thousands of dollars it takes to make a complete audiobook and pay it all up front. You're kind of pigeonholed. You need to do this exclusive rights so that you can do the royalty share and do those kinds of things where it's a little bit more affordable. And so that part's a little bit frustrating to me. I would like to see it, if I understand it all correctly. Maybe I'm not even understanding, maybe there is a way to do it. But I love the idea of you have something, you have your creative baby and you want to put it out there for the world to see. And it's hard when it's limited, is my only, I guess, critique would be.
So then you would want to have more options. So if you could change anything about it, would that be what you would change?
I would say that there has to be a way where you can put it onto the other platforms. And I get it from a marketing standpoint. I get it. They want, they have their certain places where they want to, they have better connections with those companies or whatever, and that's where they want to be. But then that does kind of exclude little independent stores and things like that, which I think there's a place for there's a place for everybody. And you have these big companies that have come in and they've kind of taken over the market, and the little independent bookstore is getting really lost in that shuffle, especially with COVID, when now you're not open and all that stuff. And I mean, this is people's livelihood. So I do wish that you could get it out to all those different places and everybody have a little piece of the pie,
And you're actually going to have an event coming up towards the end of March 20th, with Never Ending Bookstore in Edmonds.
I'm so excited
for the two Heaven and Earth series books, the Sea Archer and the Warrior's Progeny.
We just got finished talking with her too, and she's a delightful lady too. So little indie bookstore.
She gave us a little insight about the struggles that a bookstore has, a small independent bookstore. Yeah,
I was asking her about possibly promoting the audiobook on her bookstore, and she's, she was very upfront. She really was, and I don't blame her at all, because you have a little indie bookstore, you got a little independent bookstore, and then you've got a bigger store like Amazon or somewhere where it's very hard to compete with them. And so her thing is that she just doesn't promote
anything
that's from there. And I get it. I totally understand. So I like the idea of having options. So I guess that would be my big change if I was going to do a change.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So are you listening to audiobooks, and what kind of audiobooks you're listening?
I almost exclusively listen to audiobooks now, and it's not, and I miss reading. I miss holding a book. And then if I can't hold a book and do the Kindle, I miss that. But I am so busy and going back and forth. We have a boat, and it's an hour-long drive up there. And oftentimes my husband will go up before me. And so I'm in the car by myself. And so whenever I'm in the car, whenever I'm cleaning house, whenever I'm whatever, I'm listening to an audiobook always. I don't listen to music. I listen to audiobooks. So I that's almost exclusively how I read now.
That's cool. I mean, I get very distracted by the audiobooks or even radio. If I travel somewhere for a longer distance and I have to listen to something, I get distracted. I miss exits. So that's why I don't listen to music in the car. That's just me.
Well, for me, it just makes the trip go faster. So
it is.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
Coming from Chicago, you have no idea how many times we ended up in Indiana because we forgot to turn to go into the west suburbs.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
It can happen. So then what would be the next audiobook that you're gonna do?
The next one is going to be Sea Archer. That is book 1, so that I can do these now in order. So it will be Sea Archer. She's working on that right now, and we will hope to have that out by April or May, I think, somewhere around in there. And then she's going to get to work on Dee's Cornucopia, which is a novella. It's shorter, so and that will hopefully come out about the time that Dee's Cornucopia, the book, comes out. And then I'm going to have her finish, hopefully, the year out with Releasing the Catch, which is the women's fiction book.
So then it's basically your plan to turn all your books into audiobooks?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
I just think it's another way. I mean, having all the different formats is really great. And I'm very guilty of this, where I will buy the audiobook, I will buy the Kindle book, and I will buy the physical book. I
used to do that because of space. I don't buy physical books anymore. I donated all my books to a library back in Chicago before we moved out here, because I had almost 1,000 books.
Well, they're heavy and they take up a lot of room.
And our moving truck was like literally full to the brim. There was no room for books.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I miss the touch of a physical book.
Yeah.
At the same time, I like to sit in the dark.
Yeah, you do. But there is something about having a book and being next to a fire and drinking your cocoa or coffee or whatever.
It is. It's super cool. And then another thing we should say that's coming up, we are hoping by the end of this month is going to be a companion for the audiobook and the Heaven and Earth series book.
Yes. So that came up a while ago, and it also wraps around that whole idea of the book changing, and it started with Sea Archer. There was kind of, people love the book. The one thing that they really, not even frustrated, but were just wished that they had was some way of understanding the connections, because the Greek gods are so intermeshed, and mothers are with sons, and Zeus is with everybody,
brothers and sisters,
brothers and sisters, and everybody, all these people, all these different connections, and who's the father of that, and so it's really confusing. And I really wanted to be able to figure out a way where that could be a little more simplified, as well as my story.
If somebody's really into it, we didn't want them to start Googling for hours trying to figure out.
Yeah. If you take somebody out of their story, that's not good. So I really did want to have it so that it was really nice and easy. It also kind of gives some background information. It simplifies their dreams, so there's some spoilers in it, but for the most part, it's a great way to get a snapshot of all these characters. And I originally made it so that in Warriors, you will hear Raven tell Finn that it was so confusing, all the dreams and all the things that were happening, and she says, boy, I wish we had a journal that we could write all this stuff down, so it might be easier to try to get somebody to believe that they're a descendant when we can present them with this book and say, here, this is the research we've done, this is everything that we've done. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, oh God, we could really turn that into a book and make it a companion book. And, so yeah, I'm excited about that.
So that's going to be available for everybody that's going to buy the physical book, the paperback, and the audiobook?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And then if somebody is reading your first book for the first time, is that going to be available like the entire, up to this point, all the material we're still putting it together?
Oh, yes.
So are we gonna give them just the first set of characters because there are going to be spoilers going on, or are they going to get the entire book? So
they are going to get, we're going to add to it as the series grows. So each time, we had Sea Archer, and we had Demeter or Dee. We had Raven, and we had Finn, and so that's Poseidon, Apollo, and Demeter. So those characters, and then the next one is Lily and Colt, who are Hera and Ares, and so they will be added. Those pages will be added, and then with each subsequent book, we'll just add to it. So and it's a companion thing that we'd be giving away. So it's something that you can do. And I think it's, yeah, I'm excited.
So you saw the first draft of the new design. What do you think about it?
Yes, I love it. So I originally had the interactive book as something that was on my website, and it was just, it just was so much. So we took it off of there and we added to it. And Andrea has done a really great job at reorganizing it and putting it together. And I'm super excited. It looks really good. It looks really, really good.
It's still a work in process.
It is.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Today was the first time that Jeny actually
I
saw
know. It was really, really cool. So it's a lot of information that we had before. I also wanted to add the dreams, because the dreams are super, super important in this series. And I don't really touch on it a whole lot, except to say this right now, that it is pretty important what's going on in the dreams. And so I wanted to include that in there, but those are the spoilers because they do come from the books. So, and there's little hidden messages all over in the series and in the dreams. So
that's going to be cool.
You got that exclusive right here.
Yes, you do. And then to close this interview, let's talk a little bit about your Arcadia team.
Oh, yes.
People are asking us how they can get Jeny's books or be part of Jeny's inner circle. So if you like to review books, if you like to read books from your favorite authors, like Jeny, for example, that's writing fantasy, paranormal books and women fiction, and maybe other genres in the future. But for right now,
yes,
those are the two main genres.
Yeah.
Then how can people join your Arcadia team, which is Jeny's
it's an advanced reader copy is the abbreviation for, or is the long term of ARC. And so you can go on my website, jenyheckman.com, and you can, there's a little tab that will say Arcadia on it, and you can learn more about it, or you can sign up for it. And basically, when I have a new book come out, it's nice to have reviews already out there so that people can understand and see what other people thought of the book when it first comes out. And so this team will read the books and hopefully review them. It's not like paid reviews or anything like that. It's their honest reviews. And then they can post their reviews so that when the book does come out, everybody can see what they think about it. So yeah, you can sign up right there on jenyheckman.com and go on there and sign up to be part of it. You also get exclusive stuff. So you get the books early, you get them before other people. I give away some freebies, giveaways, swag.
Exclusively for the Arcadia team.
Yeah, just for the Arcadia team, because it's a commitment, and
it is. I'm part of ARC teams for other authors, and it's been great, especially if you have an author that you love and you cannot wait for the new book to come out. I mean, that's one way of getting it.
Well, and you get some little behind the scenes things too that you might not get, and you have more access to the author usually. If you're reading the book and you want to offer a comment or a suggestion or whatever, you have kind of this access that you don't typically have. So yeah.
Okay, so then the next thing for us will be to invite everybody to the book launch for Warriors Progeny audiobook on March 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yep.
We're going to post the links at the description of this video, whatever platform you're watching it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. It's going to be fun to get it out there.
And we're going to have a giveaway. Are we going to have a giveaway?
I think we will. I think we're going to. I think we will give away some codes for free audiobook. Maybe some other things. You don't know.
Trust me, Jeny's giveaways are good.
They are good, right?
They're good. They're amazing. I mean, she gave away a trip on the boat the last time.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah. We just actually are in the midst of getting that all scheduled. So yeah, that was really cool.
Nice. I didn't read it.
Yeah. No, it's I'm very, very excited about what's coming up. Not able to do as much writing as I want to be doing. So hopefully that will kind of change, and I'll be able to kind of get some more books out for the rest of this year and next year and stuff. So
okay, so then stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.